Now it is. Okay, so Rob's going to kick it off from a school district perspective, and then we have George over here and Nicole up here. So George and Nicole are from ClassLink, and they're going to be talking about the product as well. A little bit. So you have any questions, just make sure you pipe up whenever they ask for questions. They give you answers. And then don't forget, we have a session upstairs, which is the vendor session, after this, basically. A little bit of time where you'll be able to go around and, you're going to get all your little trinkets, and then you get tickets, which you can then turn in for prizes. Okay? All right, so everything's drawing based. If you've not been here before, how many newbies? Oh, yeah! All right, so, sorry, I'm going to take just one more minute. Oh, you're going to get these little chips. Chips equate to tickets, which equates to drawings. So you're going to have to go around and get chips from people. And in some cases, you have to give up your entity information, meaning these little things. Okay? So just remember that. Right? Look for any bright colored shirts, lab coats tonight. We'll be wearing white. And Rob, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Our session today is titled Ensure Digital Learning Access Without Sacrificing Security, How It Can Work. My name is Rob Gardner. I work for Evergreen Public Schools. I'm the Director of IT Application Services. And our co-presenter today is George Perreault. He is the Chief Academic Officer from ClassLink. And he was also the Director of Instructional Technology and Library Media at Orange County Public Schools. And he's also the chairman of the OneRoster steering committee for IMS Global. So that's really, it's nice that he's here today. So Evergreen Public Schools, we're located in Vancouver, Washington. We're on the east side of Vancouver. We have 27,000 students, 21 elementary schools, 6 middle schools, 6 high schools. We have 3 specialty schools, and we're also the host district for Cascadia Tech Academy. So I wanted to read this quote really quick. New technologies are seen as powerful tools to help schools meet the needs of ever more diverse student populations. Digital devices, software, and learning platforms offer a once unimaginable array of options for tailoring education to each individual student's academic strengths and weaknesses, interests and motivations, personal preferences, and optimal pace of learning. And I think this kind of captures what a lot of districts are doing today as they change their culture and teaching and learning to provide the skills and knowledge necessary for students in the 21st century. So the challenge, 21st century learning. With change, there's always challenges and obstacles to overcome, but there's also a lot of great opportunities. Right now in the United States, there's a school district across the United States. They provide computers, a ratio of about 1 computer to every 5 students. In Evergreen, this coming school year, we're going to be going 1-to-1. In our 2nd through 12th grade, they'll be using Chromebooks. We'll be 1-to-2, 1 device for every 2 students in kindergarten and 1st grade. Now, I'm not saying that on the first day of school, every student is going to have a device and they'll be hitting the road, but for us, this is our first year where we're going to be 1-to-1. And what I liked about this picture was students, keeping students at the center and the focus of everything that we're doing right now in tech and education as we prepare them for the future. So what are other districts doing? How many districts here are already 1-to-1? You've been doing it for 10 or more years. How about that? Anybody 10 or more years? How about 5 to 10 years that you've been doing it? I think 5 to 10 years. Okay, we're on the kind of the lower end, we're less than 5 years. And so I've got a picture up here of Mooresville Graded School District. How many people have heard of Mooresville? Anybody ever went there? Or so a lot of our staff and not a lot. A few of our staff, our leadership, they visited Mooresville. They've visited Kent. They visited other school districts that are doing 1-to-1. And so when they came back, it was like, this is what our students need. Our students, we need this technology, integrating it in the classrooms, personalized learning. So our initiative is called LIFT, Linking Individual Futures to Today. And so there's 3 aspects to that: the teaching and learning aspect, the technology, and of course the platform. So I wanted to read what personalizing learning means in Evergreen. So at Evergreen Public Schools, we believe that true learning is a dynamic and creative process where learners are supported to make meaning for themselves through engaging experiences that involve exploration and reflection. We are committed to facilitating high levels of teaching and learning that exceed standards and center on the unique needs of the students and adults in our community. Our educational plan is based on high expectations and consistent standards of excellence. It is designed to build a foundation in academic subjects and digital literacies with the implementation of rigorous, accessible, and personalized experiences. So teaching and learning, for the last couple of years, this has been our focus. How do we get teachers to start embracing technology and incorporating it into the classroom? So we've spent a lot of time with our innovation centers, with PD for them to, how do we incorporate that into the classroom? So I'm not really going to dig into a lot of detail on this. The student agency access to learning, that's really the key right now for us as we think of going one-to-one. What's going to happen when students take that device home? How are they going to access resources when they may not have internet access at home? How do we work with the community, with our partners, Comcast and things like that to try to get them access at home? The 4 C's, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. We visited a classroom, I think, a week and a half ago. It was a 4th grade classroom, and this was a great experience because we were able to go in and see groups of students working with Scratch, and it was great. One of the 4th grade students, he was like the code guru of the classroom. He had 4 levels of Super Mario Brothers that he was creating. And it was great to see that, how they were integrating the technology into their hour of code that day. Measures of individual proficiency, flexible learning environments. That's interesting for me. When I used to go to school, it was all, you were in rows of desks. But now when you walk into a classroom, it's great. You can see students are in beanbag chairs. They're learning in ways that are comfortable for them. Some kids are on the floor. They're reading a book, doing their math. Personal learning profiles, community and cultural resources. This was interesting. I was at a classroom and we saw a middle school class interacting with NASA. They had a Skype session going on, and I know schools are doing that all over right now. Engaging with outside of the school, the classroom. And for me, when I was a student, I think the most interesting thing that ever happened when I was in high school, I remember in my physics class, 1986. It was January, and we were watching the space shuttle, and unimaginable thing happened. It exploded. Krista McCullough, she was a teacher, was going to be a payload specialist on the space shuttle. And for me, I think back to that, I'm like, wow, that's the only time in my life that I remember in the classroom having this engagement from outside instead of just having the physics teacher, lecturing to me in that class. So this is just an example of some of our flexible learning environments. Of course, in the upper left, that is the Skype session with the NASA person. So the technology, devices. Everybody talks that the device is not. It's not about the device. It's not about the device, but sometimes it can be. We were going in one direction about 9 months ago. We were all Windows 10. And we were going down that path. We had set up ADFS. That was how we were going to do a lot of our single sign-on. But then all of a sudden, the devices that we got were not good. The hardware was not great, so we had deployed almost 5,000, 6,000 of these devices. We had to pull them back out of the schools and return them. So now we're going 180 degrees the other way. We're using Chromebooks. And so we're going to be using Chromebooks 2nd to 12th grade, our iPads in K-1. Keeping students safe. That's the typical stuff that we do every day. The filtering, making sure that our Google environment is set up properly. We just had an audit with a third party to help us in that area. Digital safety and citizenship. We're teaching our students. We've started doing that a few years ago about digital citizenship, and just recently, in the state of Washington, the governor just signed a law that school districts are going to have a model program for digital citizenship, media literacy, and internet safety. So devices, again, we went to Chromebooks. The benefit is that they're easy. In my opinion, they're easy. How many districts here are a Chromebook? I mean, that's what your majority of things are. How many are a mix? You know, they use Apple and Chromebooks and Windows and yeah. Kindle Fire. Yeah. So why do they work for Evergreen? I mean, you have a battery life that lasts longer than about 8-9 hours. It helps. Our platform. So this is where my team, we really get into the nitty-gritty, especially about what this session is about. Connecting our LMS, our digital curriculum and resources, single sign-on, rostering. How many districts are here from Washington and have Skyward? Have any of you bought the Skyward API? Have you purchased that yet? Looked into that? How's it gone with that? Okay.
Skyward.
Okay. So yeah, we just purchased it, and now we're working with our LMS provider. It's learning. How many people here have a district standard LMS that they're working with right now? Any? You want to share what you're using, or Canvas, or Apara? You guys are using Apara? Canvas. Yeah, we're using Apara too with our Chromebooks. We just got that this year. So right now, it's how do we connect all that securely and safely, and that's and what's really cool, when you look at this, the vision that our platform and our ecosystem will be able to connect using LTI, these standards to connect everything together, and we'll talk a little bit more about single sign-on and rosters here in a second. So digital curriculum overload. 3 years ago, we were the wild, wild west. Our schools, our teachers, they were using whatever they wanted out there. Schools would purchase whatever they want, and it was very difficult once we started looking at our LIFT initiative of how do we ensure that what we're doing is that we're protecting student data, their privacy, and ensuring that teachers understood what was happening when they were, getting these free programs or signing up, having students log in with Google. So new technologies present new challenges. The rise of big data has led to new concerns about how schools can keep sensitive student information private and secure. And the whole Wild Wild West thing kind of brought that to light. And so we created a committee. Our first initial committee was about 20 members, so you can imagine that it was kind of hard to get everybody on the same page. And a lot of times it was like, why do we need to look at terms and conditions? Why do we need to look at privacy policies? It's free, why can't we just do it? And so we had to get our internally, even our folks at the district, some of our folks at the district level, to understand that, we need to tighten this up, because we don't want to be sharing student information with a third party, and then all of a sudden there's a data breach. How are we held responsible at that point? So we've kind of narrowed it down now. We have a committee now called DPAC. It's Data Privacy Advisory Committee, and that team. We sit down every quarter and we review all the curriculum requests that come through. And one of the other things I put up there is consult your attorney. And what we found out is, when we first started down this path and we started consulting our attorney fees can go up quite a bit. But they taught us a lot. They taught us a lot about why the data that we're sharing, it's not just about the directory information. It's more about what is going to happen with that data once you sever that relationship with that third party. What's going to happen if that third party sells to another organization? What are you going to do with your data? How do you get your data and make sure that they destroy it and if they no longer need access to it? So one of the other things we're doing is COSIN. We're setting up, going through the trusted learning environment. Bryce, he's on our team. He's here at the conference this week. His team is working on that. PTAC, and I put that up there because it's a really great resource. We actually our teachers have to sign an acceptable use policy, and one of the things that we've done is we've put a couple of the videos out there that teachers should review and look at. There's FERPA 101. There's a couple other good videos out there, but that's a great resource. And along the bottom of this slide, you see the student data privacy pledge badge. You see the I Keep Safe badges. So one of the questions that we had as a group when our DPAC committee is, what do those mean to us? What does that mean to us? If they've signed the student privacy pledge, do we need a data sharing agreement with them? And in most cases, that's what we're doing. We're working with our vendors We have some standard data sharing agreements that our attorneys helped us craft, and we send it to them. Hopefully they sign them. If not, there's the back and forth, and then we kind of negotiate, what is comfortable for our district. Password storage and security. That's a big issue. So for us, we wanted in our district, we wanted it to be easy for students and teachers to be able to access the resources that they need. So of course, you have the post-it notes, and then sometimes you've got the little login cards that teachers may have. So single sign-on and roster. So one of the things we did about 9 months ago, well, more than that, about 18 months ago, we started looking at single sign-on solutions. We looked at everything from the solution that the whole identity and management access management process, the life cycle of a teacher, a student. So we started looking, and how many people out there have a single sign-on solution right now? So what are you guys using?
Tools forever.
So you're using Tools Forever?
Clever.
So you're using Clever?
Clever around 5.
Okay. Clever, yeah, we're using Clever. We have Clever. We had Clever for about 5 years now, and we used it mainly for rostering, and it's a nice product. But we decided that we wanted something that was more inclusive of not just products that worked with Clever, but any resource. So we decided to go with ClassLink. And so this is just a screenshot of one of the apps and things that we have on our hub or launchpad or whatever you want to call it on ClassLink. One of the cool things about ClassLink, and I don't know if I'll go into the sales thing, but My Files. If you've never seen the My Files piece, this came to be really important with some of our staff when our direct access broke. It was only down for a little bit, but they were at least able to get to their network files this way and the group share files. So their home directories were able to get to that. And to be honest with you, that's the thing that people talk about the most. A lot of the teachers is, I can get to My Files. This is kind of, this is cool, but wow, this is even cooler. I can get to My Files through the interface. What's really nice too is you get real-time analytics with this, and it helps kind of see your traffic, where students are going. And also it helps make decisions about purchasing decisions. Who's using Seesaw, who's using, how many people are logging into STEM scopes. So the best practices and lessons learned. What we've learned is it's okay to fail. We try to tell teachers that too. It's okay to fail. It's okay to try. If you're not trying, then you've got to do something. And it's not about the device, even though sometimes it is. It's not about it. It's how do we incorporate technology into the classroom and connect, listen, and learn. And that's why I'm here this week, is to connect with peers, folks that are doing the same thing we're doing. We all have the same battles that we're fighting with vendors, the curriculum vendors that want rosters in a certain way and things like that, and listening to each other and learning. So I'm going to show an example of Seesaw. I don't know how many people have heard of Seesaw or use Seesaw. Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool. So how do we start this with Mac?
What happens if you just advance it?
I'll just advance it.
No, go back. See, I think you can probably just click on the link here.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing.
No, it should have
What did I
played right
click?
from the presentation. There you go.
There you go.
So 10 times 30 is 300. 10 times 30 equals 300. So then 12, yeah. So then 2 times 30 equals 60. And 12
what I liked about this example was it really tied everything together. I mean, this student is reflecting on something that he learned. He's sharing it with the teacher. The teacher can go in and see that, hey, he understands this concept. What's really cool about Seesaw, too, is that they can share that with parents. And parents can actually see what's going on in the classroom. For me, when my son was in elementary school, he's 26 now, it was kind of like this black box that he went to. He got on the bus, he went to school, he came home, and I'd say, well, what did you learn today? What did you do today? And he'd say, and the conversation just turned to wall ball. So I don't know if you guys have seen wall ball, but that would have been really cool when I was a parent, you know. And the interesting thing about this teacher is this was my son's third grade teacher that was using this. So she's been in education for a while. And it's really neat because you can see the communication between her and the parent, and then also she communicates with the student. And if the student does something that in the video that wasn't appropriate, she lets them know. So it's really pretty cool. So where are we going? Ensuring security, privacy and security through open source standards. So this is where I'm going to hand off to George. And he's going to talk about OneRoster and a few other things. And just thanks for letting me speak today about what we're doing at Evergreen.
So, I think this is everybody's pain point. If this is your role, that you know, especially after your teachers go to a conference, they come back and say, "Hey, look what I found at this conference is great." They said it's not a problem for the IT department. So, which means it's a problem for the IT department. So there you go. So, as Rob said, I came from Orange County Public Schools in Orlando. I spent 40 years in the school district. I was the Director of Instructional Technology and Library Media, and at some point, as we said earlier, I missed a meeting, and now I was in charge of textbooks as well. Because I was in charge of libraries, there's books in libraries, so that made perfect sense to our executive leadership. So, just to give you an idea, it's the 10th largest school district in the country. We've got 190 now it's over 200,000 students. We've got 500 physical servers in the data center. They're all virtualized. We've got 14,000 teachers. We run 1,000 buses every day. We keep 50,000 gallons of diesel fuel in the ground at all times because of the hurricanes. So you get the picture, okay? It's kind of a big problem. However, I'm not here to talk about the fact that I come from a big district. What I've found since I've gone to the dark side about a year and a half ago is that we all have the same problems. It doesn't matter if you have 200,000, 20,000, or 2,000. Everybody's got the same problems. You have more resources, less resources, more hats, less hats. It's a perennial issue that we're running into. And we've got 18 one-to-one sites, more than that now. We've got 77,000 Windows laptops deployed, HPs and Lenovo's. We tried Chromebooks, we tried iPads, we tried MacBook Airs, we tried all different ones before we settled on the Windows platform. So that was just our decision. They're now using Windows in terms of authentication, but they're also doing Google. So like you all, it's a little bit of everything, right? Depending on your leadership and what teachers have allowed us to know, that kind of stuff. So this is, we talked a little bit about, Rob talked a little bit about single sign-on. So these were some of my pain points. They're probably some of yours as well. I'm not saying that any of them stand out more than others, but you know, we've got all of these sorts of usual suspects of folks who are out there. These are just some, and it doesn't include our internal systems. Our ERP system was SAP, and we had what is it called? It's called SMS. It's the former WinSchool, which is our SIS, and you know, I think we're going to Skyward or I don't know. It's not my problem anymore. We went with something called Focus, which is a Florida company. That did not go well. So what I'd love to do a whole presentation on our single sign-on platform, and I'll mention a little bit, but that's not really why I wanted to come here and talk to you. I want to talk to you about the two-headed dragon that you're all faced with, and that is when you think about your kids and your teachers accessing digital resources, there's two elements, and they're separate, but they're tied to the same body. One is your single sign-on. How do you get kids to the platform? Because you noticed before, each one of those, I mean, we're all tech people, right? They all have different URLs. So that's why they have those cards hanging off the side. That's why you've got bookmarks, people are using Symbaloo, all kind of stuff to be able to remember the URLs. And then the second part of that is the rostering piece. And they're separate, because I can single sign on in and they're not rostered. I can roster kids in, they're not single. So you got to really have both if you're going to make real movement. All right? So, and here's you down here in the corner. All right? You're St. George, and you are fighting this dragon all the time. So this is how they think you do it, okay? When they come to you and they say, look, we got this new product and we're going to have in professional development when? Tomorrow, okay? And we need kids rostered in here, and they think that this is how you do it, when in fact this is how it's done. All right, so you've got people who are scrambling, like, what's the file format? Where do I get this out of the SIS? How do I put it together? What is the schema that they require? This is the reality. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about challenges with roster delivery. I want to talk about IMS Global. If you're not familiar with IMS Global, I encourage you to do so. It's a standards organization. I want to talk about the development of OneRoster. OneRoster was born out of Orange County because I was having a fit with all the publishers. You can imagine with 200,000 kids, we had a data warehouse. We were exporting from the SIS to the EDW. They were giving me a ODBC connection to a set of SQL tables. I was bringing that into Access. From there into Excel, concatenating fields, moving columns. You know how this works, right? Except that you all are more technical than I, so you probably are scripting this, but I'm the instructional tech guy, right? So, development of OneRoster. I want to talk about facts.education, which is a website where you can go to get some resources. And I want to talk about our OneRoster server that we developed in conjunction with IMS Global. So, as you know, the rostering, when you're trying to do this, is every company has a different file layout. Sometimes two products in the same company have different file layouts. Then you've got to schedule your uploads. And then, of course, you've got multiple internet addresses that have to be dealt with. This probably doesn't happen to any of you, but sometimes you get a vendor who says, we have one giant database, so you have to provide a username and password that's unique in our system. And I say to that, who's paying who? And then, of course, you all have other priorities sometimes, like payroll. Okay? Or like the fact that if you're the CIO, your CIO goes to a cabinet meeting, and you come back and you have 3 top priorities now. And I never understood how you could have more than one top priority, but it seems to happen. So you've got priorities, and then, of course, that person comes in and says, oh, PD tomorrow, we forgot to tell you. And then from a teacher perspective, you saw the things on the monitor there, the usernames and passwords. I always knew where to find my teacher's AD credentials because they were right here. Okay? Or on the pullout. Or in some cases, the assistant principal I worked with, because I was an assistant principal for 16 years, written right on the side of the monitor, where the kids sit when they come into her office, the assistant principal for instruction, because we had those big Dell jobs, with the big wide bezels on them. Okay? So she had it written right in the corner. So you only have access to the student grade, so that's not a big deal. But then, certainly no teacher is, it sounds like Rob's taken some steps to avoid, but certainly no teacher is sending Excel spreadsheets over the email. Certainly that doesn't happen. And I don't know about you all, but I experienced this with Houghton Mifflin and McGraw, is I had to have secret codes that I put on the intranet. And I had to send people to the intranet. I had to create an intranet page, textbooks.ocps.net, and they had to go there, and there that it told them, here's the secret code to allow your kids to get access to the curriculum, which is a bunch of BS, quite honest with you. Then the teachers, or sometimes through the rostering, the teachers have all the kids in the school and they have to go through and select the names. There's that methodology that goes on. And, or they're just, because I used to have vendors that would come into my office and they'd say, look, it's real simple. The teachers just enter the kids' names and then they can generate the usernames and passwords. Saying, I've got 700 kindergarten teachers. How in the heck? I almost said hell. I just did. How am I supposed to get that information out? I can't even get them in one room. Oh, it's not. Yeah, you may go. So sort of the solution and what we're talking about is something called OneRoster from IMS Global. Now, We've all had standards before, and typically this is how it works. You have 5 standards, and people say, you know, we need 1, so then you have 6. All right, that's typically how standards work. All right, but we've been through this. We've had Ed5, we had SIF, we had In Bloom, whatever that was, and you know, we've got all these different standards out there, and there wasn't really one to rally behind. So Clever came in, and they were solving a problem. Okay, but it's a proprietary issue. Okay, it's because they have their own proprietary way of doing things. So IMS Global, how many of you are familiar with IMS Global? Oh, crap. Okay. So IMS Global is a standards organization that you are probably using some of their standards. Probably the one that you're using, and if this were an assessment conference, everybody would raise their hand. It's something called QTI, which is question test interoperability, and it has to do with the way assessment companies formulate their questions. All right? Then they have a standard called, how many of you heard of LTI? No, Rob has. All right, Learning Tool Interoperability. Okay, LTI is a way to authenticate students into platforms, and in some cases, when you use something like It's Learning or Canvas or Schoology or one of those, it allows you to actually enter in without having to go through a tremendous login process. And in fact, their other standard is called the Thin Common Cartridge. Anybody heard of that? Okay, 1. So, what the Thin Common Cartridge says, those of you who hasn't had Canvas? Okay. So what, in your case, what it would allow you to do would be to consume a Thin Common Cartridge from one of the publishers, and then when somebody does a search for something inside of Canvas, it would actually show up in the list without actually having to go over to and log into the, say, Houghton Mifflin platform. And and later on, if you want to see what that looks like, I'd be happy to show it to you. I can use my grandson's login and show you the way that looks. So here's the thing about OneRoster. Okay, first of all, it's secure because the data stays with you. You're not shipping it to a third party who in turn is selling or providing it to other vendors. Secondly, it's using open data standards. So anybody can write to this. So, I mean, we have a server that parses the files for you, but you can conform to this. You can do, you can extract these files. It's not one file. It's like 8 files. Okay? But this is an open standard. Anybody can write to it. Anybody can consume it. So who's using it? Who's on board for this right now? McGraw, Houghton, Pearson, Discovery, Brainpop. Okay, you've got the big players who are now coming on board with this. Why? Why do you think they're on board with this?
They're losing sales.
And they don't want to pay the folks who charge them for access. Okay? So now there's something to rally behind, and that is this OneRoster format. And you can write to it yourself. There's no cost to it. Now, I'm not saying that we're providing a service at no cost, but there is if you want to write to the standard, you certainly can. And people like Skyward are beginning to write the extracts for this so that they can come right out of your SIS. Anybody using Infinite Campus? Okay. Well, some of the SIS are doing this, but here's what has to happen. School districts have been a little complacent about being done unto. And so part of my reason for being here is not to sell the ClassLink product. I'm the Chief Academic Officer. My lovely assistant here, Nicole, is our salesperson here for the Northeast. But I'm trying to raise awareness because I think this is a problem that has to be solved. Because if you can't get kids access, you can't get them rostered, you can't get them signed in, what good is it? I mean, honestly. Because otherwise it's just not happening. So this is my soapbox. So here's the thing. OneRoster, some of the things I've already said. The idea behind it is, for every vendor that comes in, they get the same schema. Wouldn't that be a fresh start for things? Okay, and that you're not having custom extracts for folks. Now, maybe you haven't heard of it because it wasn't ratified until June of 2015. So maybe that's why it hasn't made it up here to the northwest. Thank you. I just know it's a long plane ride from Orlando. So you can go to OneRoster.org and see this. I'm going to show you some of that. And the thing about it is files are transmitted either via SFTP, CSV files, or via REST API. Okay, because that's part of the IMS Global spec. The spec says, in order to do this and to be certified, you either have to be able to produce and/or consume the files in one of these two formats. Okay. So there's a video out here on the OneRoster. I'm not going to play it for you. You can take a look at it. It's also on the FACTS website that I'll point out to you. Probably one of the biggest differences between this and other standards is this standard is being developed with the input from the people who have to consume these files. All right? So, for example, you've got school districts involved. Orange is involved. Houston ISD is involved. You've got a lot of other districts who are being involved in this. But you've got folks. I know it's very small, but you've got all the usual suspects here. You know, you've got Moodle, you've got Pearson, you've got McGraw, you've got Hogan, you've got D2L, you've got Blackboard. These are major players. So it's important, and of course the big three being able to working towards consuming this OneRoster standard. So there's an organization out there called FACTS. It's the Federated Alliance for Curriculum Technology Standards. Started in Florida, but it soon has gone wider than that. And here's the website. And so on this website, you've got a couple of things here. You've got members. This does not bode well for my live demo. These are a lot of the school districts who they don't have conferences. There's not a membership. This is just for you to be able to sign up. You can just go on there and say we want to be a part of this. This is a visual. The publishers that says retired, we're not taking it anymore. All right, so over here under calls to action, this talks about, we want you to conform to standards. And it's facts.education, not .edu. But what's important here under this resource tab, there are two things. Number one is that little video. And this is great because if you're having trouble getting your curriculum people on board, this is written in what we call IPE, okay, in plain English. All right, so there's no tech talk in this at all. So you show this to because they'll identify with it. It talks about everything's going to need rosters, and right now teachers are manually doing it, and you'll see the bobbleheads going on as you share this with them. But more importantly, right here is a downloadable document. And this document is for you to be able to provide to any publisher to be able to say, as a condition of doing business in our district, you need to conform to this, and here's everything you need to answer to ensure us that you're going to be able to do it. Right? That's the concept behind that. So I'm not going to pull it up. It's a Word document. You can put your own logos on it and all that kind of stuff. And I know because we sort of got this started in Florida, but when those publishers walk in now, where everybody's saying, do you take OneRoster? And so what's happening is, now they're going, oh crap, I guess we're going to have to do this. Right? Because, Florida's a big market. Let's see. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about this. This is what our company is providing. Single sign-on, we sign into everything. Single sign-on file access, and we have a OneRoster product that's certified by IMS Global as a certified tool for doing this. We're logging in with a number of different things. We support open standards: ADFS, AD, SAML, LTI, OpenID Connect, OAuth 2. We're familiar with all these. So what we've got here. It sounds like it's all rainbows and unicorns, I know. But here's my challenge to you before I go into my demo on this thing. You have the power to do this, and everybody has the powers wearing a green badge. Now, you might say, hey, I'm a little tiny district. But if ACPEnw speaks with one voice, then all of a sudden you've got people's attention. So here's what I would say. There's two phases to this. One is change management internally. All right, so you have to do a couple things. You've got to educate and collaborate with your curriculum folks. And I heard Rob say that, just trying to get data privacy was a little bit of a struggle. So, you've got your internal change management that has to occur. Secondly, you need to probably have a seat at the adoption table, not to tell them this is bad curriculum, this is good curriculum, but to be able to look at that and go, no, wait a minute, how are we going to get kids in here? And I will tell you that in Orange County, if somebody won't do the OneRoster, they're not allowed to even show their stuff. That's just the end of story. You can't do it. You're not invited to the party. Thirdly, be a part of the negotiations. Now, as I said, I was the instructional tech guy and found myself all of a sudden with other duties as assigned, being in charge of instructional materials. So now these salespeople are coming in. Now they're dealing with me. They're not dealing with the traditional curriculum folks. And I was saying, I was looking at their stuff and going, this is great, but I'm not sure I want all the Bobos. Okay, you know what Bobos are? It's that big old box of that comes with every adoption. Okay, and it's quote free with order. Well, there's nothing free really. Okay, so now I'm saying, what if we do? I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a site license for the digital. Like what? Like, yeah, we're going to do a site license for the digital. And I'll buy the books. I'll buy a class set for every teacher, but then we're going to do a site license. Well, that's not how we do it. I said, well, then I can't find the PO. And it's a big PO in Orange County. But involve your procurement folks so you can hold their feet to the fire. And establish your non-negotiables. Okay? So I actually jumped ahead of myself for the change in the industry, talking to your vendors, include your specs. This is if any of you deal with procurement departments? I used to call it going to purgatory. Okay? But, be clear when you put your solicitations out about a must versus a want. Because the must says you can't play. A want says a nice to have. Okay? So, and I would say send written notification. This is what Houston ISD did. Houston ISD is massive, 230,000 kids. They sent a note to all their vendors. They said, you can use OneRoster. If you want to use Clever, you can use Clever. But that's it. And if you're not doing one of those two things, by this date, then we no longer are doing business together. And this is my last one about can't find a PO. Right? Nothing happens till somebody gets paid. And that's a real story. Because your salespeople have quotas. And they can't just all count on getting Seattle or Portland or one of the larger districts. Because they have to, as somebody said, you have to get base hits. Right? So as a result, then it's important that we speak with one voice about making sure that people enforce what's an open standard. So you're not forcing people to one particular vendor who they're going to have to pay now. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So this is the IMS Global OneRoster website. If you're interested, they're having a national conference in Denver here in about 2 weeks. It's in Denver. It's called Lilly. It's the Learning Impact Leadership Institute. And there's going to be there's going to be some OneRoster sessions. And they've changed this website on me recently, so it may take me. Okay. Here's the CSV tables so they've just come out with version 1.1. Well, this is all the stuff, but somewhere down here. Somewhere. I'm looking for the CSVs. Here we go. Is it? Nope. I think this is the new stuff. Endpoints. Did I miss it or did I go past it already?
Sit. Up, way up.
Yeah, I mean, if you have trouble sleeping at night, you can read the whole thing. Let me go back one.
Isn't that it right above, right there? Specification documents?
Yeah, I think that's where it was. They have a tendency to overcomplicate some stuff. Let's see. Yeah. Sorry about this. Specific requirements.
We can show them in our server, right, George?
Yeah, I can show it to you.
That'd
Sir.
be lots
They're essentially about 8 files. Okay, so one is your org file, and then you have a user file. And what's good about these is it specifies what the field headers are and what the acceptable responses are inside the fields. So you've got a org file, a user file. You have a courses file, a classes file, a enrollment file, a demographics file, and a term file. And now they're adding one more or two more, one of which is specifying grade, and the other one is the specification around which curriculum is associated with each course number. Okay, so what I was talking about earlier, which I had a few heads nodding, where you sometimes have to tell the teachers, here's the secret code. So this becomes a table that says, if you see this course number, here's the secret code that goes with that, so that they can auto-provision content when they do this. Now, you don't store that in your SIS at all. So that's probably a table that's going to be maintained by curriculum, but it only changes like once a year, whenever they add something new or change something. So it's not something that has to be constantly queried in order to keep up to date. All right, so that's what the standard looks like. You know, I can talk to you about it a little bit further. If we go now to show you how, you know, our implementation of OneRoster. I'm going to have to sign in here. I'm going to sign in here using, hopefully using a QR code. Log in. This works on a Chromebook and everything else too. Logs in. I'm going to change profiles and go to an admin profile. So this is the way it looks for us. Okay. Now we've sent this to IMS Global. IMS Global says yes, this is a certified tool. So those files that I talked about, those CSV files, the user, the courses, the classes, those get exported out of your SIS or your EDW or whatever ETL you're using to transform that, and they go into a folder on the server that sits behind your firewall. Right? We can host it for you. You know, there's a charge to host the server, but it's your server. We're not consuming the data. Okay, so the one, it's a Linux box. It's a VM. So this is what it looks like. So you have a dashboard of your very latest things, and when it comes time to add an application to your, I'm going to delete this one just so I can add it back. So when it comes time to add, and this is the simple form. So you come here. There's a list of your applications here. I'm going to add this ClassWorks back in. First thing you do is you say, what org units get access to this? So let's just say it's an algebra product, just for the sake of saying it. So you would come in here, and you're probably going to select your middle and high schools, because that's probably where algebra's taught, probably. Unless you've got like an elementary of super chickens, or what did one parent told me one time, her child was severely gifted. So you can pick your org units, and then you're going to come here, and you're going to say, all right, now that I pick my org units for kids enrolled in which courses. So in this case, it would be algebra courses. So because of FERPA and COPA, you don't want to send your whole load, right? Because that breaks all kind of stuff. You only want to send kids from those schools enrolled in those courses. And there's an advanced setup here that we're working on the UI, because it's a little ugly right now, where you can actually get down to all the endpoints. But what's happening here is now you're going to say, okay, I got Algebra 1, Algebra 1 Honors, Algebra 1 for the repeaters, Algebra 1 for the severely gifted, all of those course numbers that you have with algebra. And you say, okay, so I've provisioned 4 schools and 5 courses. Once you save that, I come back here to my applications. Here it is, 4 schools, 5 courses. So the question is now, how do I get this to my vendors? So one of the things we have is a built-in SFTP client. You put in your server details, You put in which files you're transferring. See, those are the files I talked about: orgs, courses, classes, demographics, users. What days of the week, your transfer time. You set that, so now you've got an automated process. If a new school comes on board, you go back in, you click on that school, it's done. All right, now, that's really great, but remember that I said in order to be compliant, you have to be able to export either CSV or allow people to come in via REST API. So now, if I come here to this piece, you've got a client ID and key and secret, and so now the vendor who has the ability can come in via REST, can fetch this file. Instead of getting CSVs, they get a JSON file. Okay, so now they get a JavaScript file that it's the same thing. Now our very newest version will also take a look at your files and will validate them for you, and it will tell you where your errors are and whether or not it passes conformance. And we've also built in some fuzzy logic, and the fuzzy logic says, yeah, you passed, but you might want to look at this. This doesn't look right. This teacher's got 75 kids. Might be okay, might be a band count, might be a band class, might be fine. Here's a class with no teachers, here's teachers with no classes, here's all the issues that are around that. So now, what you've done is you're loading this as often as you need to. It's parsing the files and it's putting them out in an industry standard format. And we've gone. It says ClassLink up there, but all the files that go in have to come in OneRoster IMS format. Any file that gets put out of this gets put out in IMS format. So we're just acting as a pass-through. We're doing the parsing. We're doing the transfer. Doing all that. But again, this sits on a box behind your firewall. It's a major difference between us and sort of the clever methodology. That is, you control access to your data. Okay? And as soon as if you don't have that vendor anymore, you just come in, you delete them, and they no longer have any access. They no longer get your files. All right. So this is, what? How many of you have to create these rosters? This is not rocket science. Everybody wants the same information. They want it with different headers. They want them in different orders. They want different values. And it's just time to say no. It's just time to say no to all that. And let's conform to an open standard. Yes, sir.
Question for you on, you get into a larger district, then is there a way to automate your selections of what courses are going to what apps, what courses from what schools to what apps?
For our single sign-on piece?
This is exactly what you're doing here, where you're linking up your rosters with your apps, right? What you just did there, where you're going through and you're hand checking.
Yeah, once you do it, it's done. Okay, so it saves that.
True.
Okay.
But it might change, change year
could.
by year.
But what happens when so let's just say, because we had a delta of about 500 changes a day in Orange, of kids moving, coming, changing schools, teachers leaving, coming. So what happens is when you put that new folder, when you put that new upload in here, it automatically reparses those files for you.
Yeah, no, I get that part.
Okay, all right.
It's more the selection of this school and these courses get linked up with this application.
I'm not sure I'm following you. Because these applications here, that's what we've done. We've said these schools,
these schools,
right,
these courses
right,
are getting sent to this application.
Right. And so
they change year by year, and the volume could be large.
Volume of the
change, what courses go with.
Yeah, they're check boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you would just have to go back in and now there is a way to select them all if it's something that's going to the whole school.
Right.
You could select them all certainly. But yeah, I mean it does say that and you would have to go back in and check those boxes.
Specific if you don't find and check all the
Yeah, there's a search. You can go in and do a search for it.
Another question is, are we pushing our roster data to you?
No.
You're pulling it.
You're sending it directly to the people you have contracts with, and hopefully you have confidentiality agreements signed with. Okay. And by the way, Clever is accepting this as well, same thing. Now I could get into the.
You have like 3 minutes.
Yeah. I invite you to come by to see our single sign-on portal. It's pretty magical, and the file access that Rob talked about, our analytics, and as of this summer, we're also going to be doing AD and Google provisioning out of your SIS and out of your ERP systems. So that's going to be a new piece as well. And with that, we can provision the apps get provisioned by school, by course, by whatever you need to. I can tell you that where I came from in Orange, my grandson uses this on a daily basis. They get about 180,000 logins a day in ClassLink. We talked to a fellow in Texas, Lamar ISD, when they implemented the single sign-on, your online textbook usage went up 96% because of the ease of access. So that's enough of my commercial. We're going to be upstairs. We'll have the chips. Yes, we'll have the chips. Okay. What's that?
Any more questions?
Yeah.
About anything, about what Rob was talking about, how they've done things at Evergreen, or problems, solutions you guys are looking for or struggling with. That's how, that's why we're here, to learn from each other and to see what direction we should be moving forward to and proponents of.
And I got to say, this is the most awesome conference I've ever been to. Well, I've heard stories.
Urban legends.
What I heard was what happens in Portland stays in Portland. So, listen, thank y'all so much for y'all. That's how you know I'm from the South. Thank y'all very much for coming. Really appreciate your time. We're here. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Have you seen anything
No, my daughter. Yeah, we do facial recognition.
Thanks.
Yeah, he loved it.
Just finishing up. Done next week.
Being from Florida, I'm used to the humidity.
Man,
It's a great school. It's beautiful.
I can hear the
Well, that's the problem. It sticks out from inside. It's like tar.
Darn, I gotta go drive to the Rockies.
Jacksonville. Not the Jacksonville people. The one that's across the border with Florida.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know Jacksonville. My daughter lives in Asheville.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's Benning, right?
What's that?
Benning's in Asheville.
No, I know. No, Benning is in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh, that's right. Wait, what's that?
There's what's it called?
There's something. Yeah, you're right.
Where's the Marine Corps? Perreault, that's South Carolina.
Yeah, that's South Carolina. I don't know. They're sprinkled all over.
My dad was a DI. And my brother is an Air Force.
For you, I guess, a good analogy. Hello.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Were you in the military?
I was as a.
Hi, I'm sorry. Are you part two? I just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. But it wasn't like.
Yeah, but I've got my niece's husband is out in California. He's in the Marine. He's a captain right now. I don't know if she's going to go Marines or Navy.
Yeah.
But she's
Nicole,
just killing it.
myself and Ryan.
She just loves it. So it was, yeah. I grew up with Yes or No Sir. He had a big Semper. He had a big Semper Fi.
Yeah.
You give me your info.
That's what my kids say.
Yeah. That's right. Hoorah.
There we go.
There you go. Yep.
Thank you much. Boy, I will be stopping by.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I could only talk about it for like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah. Well,
It's kind of a hot button.
yeah.
Hi, Tim. Yes, well, thank you.
Our customer.
For authentication purposes, we're using it just pretty much. We're talking about it's all together. So I'm missing something there because I want to be able to authenticate off Active Directory and then be able to send something onto a product. So is that a piece that we have, or is that something we can add?
But if you're doing hosting, that's what we were doing demoing them. I know who about the online. I'll get PSP tomorrow. That's what drove me really quick. But then this stuff becomes just
So one that we're using that our component right now is school face, and we're going through Clever. We're doing rostering through Clever. Students don't log in, only teachers. Of course, they didn't tell me that until middle of September after they said get this set up, right? So we set it up in Clever.
like pack a pack.
To go.
Schedule me, I choose a schedule. Webinar for you.
I'll come by your booth.
Yeah.
You guys are upstairs.
Yes.
So, okay.
So yeah, so we put that Clever app on
You know what? Do you have
So we're going right now with the teachers are going over to their Google apps and then they're going back into SchoolPace. This summer I'm going to change it so it's just based off of AD. And SchoolPace says they can do Clever or ClassLink. But I've been emailing support and they say, well, we don't know how to do that. So at ClassLink, just they said they're going to follow up and I just haven't heard back. So I figured I just need to know how to manage the stuff. And then maybe I set something up. I'll swing by your booth upstairs.
I just need to, because I'll get our developer on there. If you have a contact with that company, we'll get, if they said they can work with us, if they can do AD or ADFS, we're done.
Yeah, they say they don't do any authentication, but if I send them the user and the email address already authenticated, then it goes. So that's where I'm just kind of I'm missing. But we have all of our teachers. ClassLink is their homepage. They get there. Instructional technology is loving it, and we just throw stuff there. So I just have
and the thing is, we probably need to revisit your apps.
Okay.
And see, because as time, and you know this how
That's the one nice thing.
For a year and a half.
Okay. But we're constantly adding new
No.
every time we get new
But
companies
to
who
allow
come
the
on
users
board,
to
again, we're not
customize if
charging.
you choose to allow
So
it.
we push them towards
So
LTRO.
I am going.
Did you have ADFS or AD?
We have AD. We're probably be standing up ADFS this summer.
And we have, if you need some help with that, we have a resource. Okay, and it's actually a guy named
So there's active directory,
He's helping.
ADFS.
We pay him for us.
Active directory.
Our Active Directory is Google, so
Yeah, Google's easy. I could have hit on that button that was on the.
We'd be happy to provide you.
Okay. Well, I think we're using it, we're renewing it. It's just, I think we're just ready to take it to the next step. So if we get past
Now, do you know Nicole?
I think if she was here last year, I think I met her.
No, she wasn't here last year, so she's only been with us about 7 months.
Okay.
And so this
So,
gets customized
Nicole
based
is
on who the user is, right?
Okay.
A teacher of high school can have elementary students, administrators.
No, I just give it.
So what we do is Google Worksheet, right? It'll list, here's the resources.
3 segments or something.
We're going to build a dashboard on the back.
That's crazy.
But as far as the users know, they just sign in, right? Authenticate with whatever
either a picture
way.
or Google. All our open ones.
Yeah, it's hard. And you don't have to choose just one. You can say, we would like this combination.
It's crazy.
Rob,
It's crazy.
thank you so
So,
much.
but yeah, come on. Hey, Rob, really appreciate.
And so when
Yeah,
you
really
get in,
appreciate
that's
you. I
how
hope
these are
it was
populated,
informative for you
and
too.
it's
Yeah,
exactly how you think
This is our next thing we're doing.
single
Yes,
binary,
sir, buddy.
right? You just point, click,
Yeah.
you're in.
Yeah, and all we have to do, if you want to set up a VM, we'll load the Linux for you.
And
Okay.
then
Set it all
going
up,
back to
make it all happen
That's
for
the
you.
problem is our guys don't know
customization.
Linux.
So there's
That's
some
okay.
options.
And we can
So
host
what I
it,
was
and
showing
then for
Sherman
you,
over
we
here,
probably would just do it for you.
When we were demoing last week,
So
is
we'd host it in
we already know,
AWS, but it's
maybe
not
I
our
wanna
server,
give
it's
them
your
access
server.
to our
We're just
over 5,000
taking,
single
the only
family apps
advantage of
already
that
have
is,
created.
when we
So
push stuff out and
maybe
stuff, it's
I
easier to
know
maintain.
personally that,
But we do, the last thing we want to do is
my
be
school
involved
can
with your data.
So
Now,
I
do you
can
know
come in
Rob?
here, I can search.
I don't think
and
we've met.
I
So
can
Tim is at Federal Way?
Federal Way.
Come
Oh, yeah,
in here.
We're
okay.
ClassLink customer up in
Teachers can do
Federal
that.
Way.
Or
Okay, so you guys should know each other.
further,
And then you can
maybe
double
I'm a
team us if you
resource
need to.
that
Yeah.
my parents have gone, like ABC
So the
Mouse.
interesting thing was you
So
were
I
just
can
talking
come
about
in here and I can just click
provisioning?
ABC
Yeah,
Mouse.
that's
And now
coming up.
that's added
We've
to
got
it.
it done.
So-
We're just working on the UI.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But it's not gonna
So,
be,
let's see if I have,
is everything
like,
still running back there?
TestNet, right? Or dictionary.com. So
What's that?
nothing
The red
that's a paid resource, but